What really happened to Quang? Was he truly kidnapped by ruthless criminals, or did he vanish to escape a crushing debt and a life he no longer wanted? Linda is desperate for answers, haunted by his sudden disappearance and the chilling rumors surrounding him. As she uncovers the mounting debts, his cold detachment after her miscarriage, and the relentless pursuit of his mother by creditors, the line between victim and orchestrator blurs. Join us as we unravel this gripping tale of mystery, betrayal, and desperate choices. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the full story. The truth awaits. Linda had not slept for 2 nighs. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the last image of Quang she could recall, standing by the roadside in the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, his shoulders hunched, a cigarette burning low between his fingers. It had been raining lightly that evening, the kind of thin drizzle that left the air smelling faintly of wet asphalt and rusted tin roofs. She remembered waving at him from the balcony, but he didn't wave back. He had only given her a small nod before turning away, disappearing into the night. That was 3 days ago. Since then, he had vanished without a trace. When she first realized he was missing, Linda refused to panic. She told herself that maybe Quang had just gone on one of his occasional disappearances, those sudden trips to clear his head, when he would shut off his phone and spend a night or two at some budget hotel in the outskirts of the city. But by the second day, when every call went straight to voicemail and every message remained unread, the pit in her stomach grew heavier. By the third day, that pit had become a cold, twisting knot of dread. She began searching the places he used to frequent, the small corner cafe where the owner knew his order by heart, the dim billiards hall where he sometimes spent hours in silence, the rooftop of their old apartment building, where they once sat side by side watching the city lights flicker like fireflies. Each location gave her the same answer: blank stares, sympathetic shrugs, and the same slow shake of the head. It was as if Quang had been erased from the city itself. Then the rumors started. A neighbor mentioned overhearing a man talking about a robbery near the Western Bridge 2 nights ago. Another claimed they saw a group of rough-looking men dragging someone into a black van not far from the night market. The whispers grew louder: Quang's been kidnapped. A gang's got him. They'll ask for ransom. The idea chilled Linda to the bone. Kidnapped? For what reason? Quang wasn't rich. He wasn't connected to anyone powerful. He kept to himself, lived quietly, paid his bills late, but eventually. Why would a gang target him? Still, fear gnawed at her. She imagined him locked away in some filthy room, hands bound, eyes wild with panic. She thought about the cold sweat on his forehead, the desperate thoughts that might be running through his mind. The images kept her pacing the living room until dawn. But there was another, darker thought she couldn't quite push away, a thought she hated herself for even considering. What if this wasn't a kidnapping? What if Quang had chosen to disappear? It was an idea so far-fetched yet so insistent that it clawed its way into her mind every time the city grew quiet at night. He had been distant lately, distracted, his words short and clipped. Sometimes she'd catch him staring at the floor instead of at her when she spoke. And that night, under the street lamp, had there been something final in his gaze? Something like farewell? Linda tightened her coat around her and stood at the corner of the street where she had last seen him. The rain had returned, soft and unhurried, blurring the glow of the lamps into halos. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, sharp and sudden. She scanned the shadows, half expecting to see his familiar silhouette emerging from the darkness, cigarette in hand, wearing that crooked smile she had always loved. But there was nothing, only the endless hum of the city, and the unshakable sense that Quang was gone in a way that might not be reversible. As Linda wandered the streets in a daze, a heavier, darker thought began to settle over her, one she had tried desperately to ignore. Whispers she had overheard among acquaintances, rumors exchanged in hushed tones at cafes and offices, hinted at a reality far more complicated than a simple kidnapping. Quang, they said, had been in debt, deeply, dangerously in debt. Loans taken from shady lenders, investments gone wrong, some so enormous that no ordinary person could possibly repay them without losing everything. The murmurs suggested that perhaps his disappearance was not a matter of being taken, but of choosing to vanish, a calculated escape from obligations that had grown too heavy to bear. Linda's mind spun with the possibilities. She remembered the tension etched across his face during the last weeks, the way he avoided eye contact when financial matters came up, the brief flickers of worry in his normally calm gaze. Could it be true that Quang, the man she had loved with every fiber of her being, had been quietly planning to cut ties with everyone, including her? And if so, why now? Why after everything they had shared, including the tragedy of her miscarriage? Her chest tightened at the memory of that time, the day she had lost the child, the day Quang's attention began to drift, the nights he spent pacing alone in silence, his answers clipped and absent of comfort. She had dismissed it at first, blaming grief and shock, but now the pieces seemed to fit together in a way that chilled her. The idea gnawed at her relentlessly. Perhaps his disappearance was not random. Perhaps he had been preparing this escape for weeks, or even months, ensuring that by the time anyone realized he was gone, it would be too late to find him. He had the intelligence and the resources to make it convincing, to stage a scenario that looked like an abduction, even down to the smallest detail. And if that were true, then everything she feared about the gang rumors might have been nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. Linda felt a sharp pang of betrayal, a bitter taste that mixed with the fear knotting her stomach. How could the man she loved have turned away from her so completely, choosing disappearance over confrontation, debts over honesty? Her thoughts shifted to his family. She knew his mother was struggling to keep her own life together, her days consumed by anxious phone calls and the relentless pursuit of creditors. The idea that Quang's debts were spilling over into her world was horrifying. She had glimpsed the desperation in the lines etched on her mother-in-law's face, the way her hands shook when she recounted encounters with the men who came demanding repayment, the way her voice quavered with both fear and exhaustion. Linda realized that the pressure on Quang, the fear, and the sense of entrapment must have been unbearable, so much so that running away, however cruel it seemed to her, might have appeared to him as the only solution. Linda's anger wrestled with her sorrow. The man she had loved, who had once whispered promises of forever into the quiet of her nights, now seemed like a stranger she barely recognized. The romantic image she had held onto was replaced by the unsettling suspicion that she might have been a spectator to his carefully hidden struggles, an unwitting participant in a drama he had orchestrated alone. Every unanswered call, every vanished message, every rumor she had chased down led her back to the same uncomfortable question: had Quang truly been taken by criminals, or had he vanished willingly, leaving her and everyone he owed behind to face the consequences? As the rain began to fall again, soft and relentless, Linda wrapped her coat tighter around herself and continued her wandering, each step heavier than the last. The city's noise, the distant horns, the murmurs of pedestrians, the hum of neon signs seemed distant and unreal, like a backdrop to a nightmare. She had loved Quang with everything she had, and yet the truth, whatever it was, seemed poised to tear that love apart. Somewhere between grief and disbelief, hope and suspicion, Linda realized she was standing at the edge of a precipice, and whether she fell or found solid ground depended entirely on discovering the truth, a truth that might shatter everything she thought she knew. The next morning, Linda found herself outside Quang's family home, the place she had always thought of as a sanctuary, now transformed into a theater of fear and desperation. His mother, once dignified and composed, was now a shadow of herself. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with the lock on the front door, and her face bore deep lines that had not been there a week ago. Outside, two men in dark suits waited impatiently, their expressions sharp and unyielding, voices low but threatening as they demanded repayment. The relentless pursuit of creditors had left her mother exhausted, but the thought of Quang's disappearance had pushed her to the brink of despair. Linda stood frozen, watching the scene unfold, unsure whether to intervene or retreat, every instinct telling her that stepping inside would reveal truths too heavy to bear. Inside the house, the air was thick with tension. The walls, once filled with warmth and memories of family gatherings, now seemed to close in like a prison. The creditors moved with cold precision, tallying amounts, inspecting documents, and demanding answers. His mother tried to maintain composure, explaining that her son had vanished without warning, that she had no access to his accounts or resources. Her voice cracked under the pressure, and a small sob escaped despite her efforts to hold it back. Linda could see the hopelessness in her eyes, a hopelessness born of years of sacrifice now threatened by the consequences of Quang's choices. As she watched, Linda's mind wrestled with the unbearable question that had haunted her for days. Was this chaos the result of a calculated disappearance, or had Quang truly been a victim of circumstance? The more she observed his mother's interactions with the relentless creditors, the more the pieces of the puzzle seemed to shift uncomfortably in her mind. The fear in his mother's voice, the fatigue in her movements, the way she flinched at every raised hand or sharp tone, it all suggested a life lived under constant threat, a life where the weight of Quang's decisions fell squarely on her shoulders. And yet, there was a subtle undertone in the way she hesitated when speaking about her son, a flicker of worry that went beyond the immediate danger. Was there something she was not telling Linda? Something that might explain why Quang had vanished so completely? Linda stepped closer, her heart pounding. She wanted to comfort her mother-in-law, to offer words that might soothe the storm raging in that house, but she felt powerless. Every glance at the family photographs, smiling faces frozen in happier times, made the current reality feel even more unbearable. And as the creditors finally stormed out, leaving behind a trail of threats and the lingering smell of tension, Linda realized that the ordeal was far from over. The house was silent, but the silence was brittle, filled with questions that demanded answers. Where was Quang? Had he been a victim, or had he orchestrated this entire nightmare, leaving his mother to face the consequences? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on Linda like never before. She could feel the storm outside mirrored in her chest, a relentless, pounding anxiety that refused to dissipate. The city's rain had returned, drumming softly against the windows, masking the sobs that had finally escaped her own lips. She imagined Quang somewhere out there, perhaps terrified, perhaps indifferent, perhaps watching this chaos unfold with a cold detachment that made her blood run cold. And she realized that until she uncovered the truth, nothing would make sense, not his absence, not the mounting threats against his mother, not the gnawing suspicion that the life she thought she knew had been a fragile illusion, ready to collapse at the slightest pressure. Linda took a deep breath, trying to steel herself. She knew that finding Quang would not just be about locating a missing person. It would be about confronting the web of lies, debts, and choices that had led to this moment. Whether he had disappeared willingly or had fallen into the hands of those who preyed on the desperate, she was determined to uncover the truth. Every step she had taken so far, every sleepless night, every whispered rumor, had led her here, to the heart of a mystery that threatened to shatter everything she loved. And in that quiet, rain-soaked house, surrounded by shadows and unanswered questions, Linda understood that the answers she sought would demand courage, resilience, and the willingness to face truths far darker than she had ever imagined.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Bí tử Ninja. Rất vui vì ngày hôm nay ngày hôm nay thì đã có một tình tiết mới, đó chính là việc Ninja đứng trước nghi ngờ vì sự mất tích của Quang là anh mất tích thật sự hay là chỉ là sự trốn tránh trách nhiệm với các hoạt động mà anh gây ra, và cái việc chịu trách nhiệm về việc người cô. Thắc mắc rất lớn đang dậy lên trong lòng Ninja. Mọi sự thật sẽ được hé lộ ở các tập tiếp theo, sẽ được phát sóng vào 8 giờ sáng hàng ngày trên kênh Bí tử Ninja Review. Rất cảm ơn các bạn. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn vào các tập sau. Bye bye.